In the 1930s, Germany was a nation undergoing immense change. Amidst this transformation, a powerful idea took hold. It was a simple yet revolutionary concept, a car for the common person. At the time, automobiles were a luxury, far beyond the reach of the average family. The German government, through an organization known as the German Labor Front, sought to change this. They envisioned a future where every working family could own a reliable and affordable vehicle. This vision was not just about transportation. It was about national pride and the promise of a better, more modern life for all citizens. This ambitious project led to the official founding of a new company in 1937. It was called Gesellschaft zur Vorbereitung des deutschen Volkswagens GmbH, which later became Volkswagenwerk GmbH. The name itself translates to the People's Car Company. Its sole mission was to bring this dream to life. A massive new factory was planned in a town that would become known as Wolfsburg. The plan was grand, designed to be one of the largest and most advanced manufacturing plants in the world. The goal was to mass-produce a single, brilliantly designed car that could be sold at a price nearly anyone could afford. The car was to be the work of the brilliant engineer Ferdinand Porsche. His design was simple, durable, and distinctive, with a rear-mounted, air-cooled engine that made it easy to maintain. It was small, but could comfortably seat a family of 4. This was the KDF Wagen, or Strength Through Joy car, named after the state-operated leisure organization that sponsored it. To make it accessible, a special savings scheme was introduced. German workers could buy stamps each week, and once their stamp book was full, they could claim their very own car. This created immense excitement and hope across the nation. The promise of the people's car captured the public's imagination completely. It symbolized progress and a new era of mobility for everyone, not just the wealthy elite. Thousands upon thousands of ordinary people eagerly signed up for the savings program, diligently putting aside their hard-earned money each week. They dreamt of family road trips and the freedom of the open road. The factory was being built, the design was finalized, and the savings books were filling up. It seemed as though this grand social and industrial experiment was on the path to incredible success, ready to change the face of Germany forever. As construction of the massive Wolfsburg factory neared completion, the world was moving closer to conflict. The political climate in Europe was growing tense, and the priorities of the German government began to shift dramatically. The focus moved away from consumer goods and towards military readiness. This had a direct and profound impact on the Volkswagen project. The resources, the steel, and the manpower that were once dedicated to building cars for families were now being eyed for a very different purpose. The promise of the people's car, once so bright, was beginning to fade under the shadow of impending war. The outbreak of World War II, in September 1939, changed everything almost overnight. The dream of mass-producing the KDF Wagen for the German public came to an abrupt halt. The state-run savings scheme had collected millions of marks from ordinary citizens, but not a single one of them would receive the car they had been promised. The factory, which was built specifically to manufacture this one vehicle, was repurposed. The production lines that were meant to assemble family cars were instead retooled to support the German war effort. The hopes of countless individuals were sacrificed for the demands of the state. So what happened to the factory? It did not stay idle. Although civilian car production ceased before it ever truly began, the plant itself was a valuable asset. Its advanced machinery and large workforce could be used to produce military vehicles. The design of the people's car, with its robust chassis and simple engine, proved to be surprisingly adaptable for military applications. The very same engineering that was intended to bring joy and freedom to families was now being twisted to serve the machinery of war. The factory floor, once envisioned as a place of peaceful industry, was set to become a cog in a global conflict. This transition marked a deep and tragic irony in Volkswagen's early history. A project born from a desire to empower the common person was now being used to fuel a devastating war. The savings of the people, invested in good faith, were absorbed by the state and used for military production. The factory built to deliver a dream would instead produce instruments of destruction. The Volkswagen story, which began with such optimistic ideals, was now entering its darkest and most difficult chapter. one that would leave a permanent mark on its identity and legacy for decades to come. With the onset of the war, the Volkswagenwerk factory underwent a complete transformation. The primary focus shifted from the civilian KDF wagon to military vehicles based on its chassis. The simple, rugged design proved to be incredibly versatile. One of the first and most widely produced vehicles was the Kubelwagen. This was a light military vehicle, something like the German equivalent of the American Jeep. It used the same rear-engine, rear-wheel drive layout as the people's car, but was housed in a light, open-topped angular body. It was cheap to build and performed well in various conditions, making it a workhorse for the German army. Another key vehicle to emerge from the Wolfsburg factory was the Schwimmwagen. This remarkable machine was an amphibious four-wheel drive version of the Kubelwagen. It could drive on land, and with a retractable propeller at the rear, could also navigate rivers and lakes. This capability made it extremely useful for reconnaissance missions and for crossing water obstacles where bridges had been destroyed. The ingenuity of Ferdinand Porsche's original design was now being leveraged for military advantage, a stark departure from its peaceful origins. The factory became a critical center for producing these essential light vehicles for the front lines. Beyond vehicles, the factory's role in the war effort expanded even further. The plant also became involved in the production of other armaments and military supplies. This included manufacturing parts for aircraft, such as the V1 flying bomb, a terrifying weapon that was used against civilian populations. The skills of the workforce and the capacity of the machinery were fully integrated into the German war economy. The dream of a people's car was now a distant memory, replaced by the relentless 24-hour-a-day production of materials needed to sustain a prolonged and brutal conflict. The factory itself became a strategic target for Allied forces. Recognizing its importance to the German military, the plant was subjected to repeated bombing raids, particularly in the later years of the war. These attacks caused extensive damage to the buildings and production lines, further disrupting any possibility of returning to civilian manufacturing. The physical structure of the factory, like the ideals it was founded upon, was left in ruins by the conflict. The war had not just delayed the Volkswagen dream, it had physically shattered the place where that dream was supposed to be born. The story of wartime production at the Volkswagen factory has a deeply troubling human dimension. As the war progressed and German workers were conscripted into the army, the factory faced a severe labor shortage. To keep the production lines running, the Nazi regime turned to a brutal and inhumane solution: forced labor. People from occupied countries across Europe were rounded up and transported to Germany against their will. These individuals, including civilians, prisoners of war and concentration camp inmates, were forced to work in the factory under horrific conditions, becoming an essential but tragic part of its wartime operation. These forced laborers endured immense suffering. They were housed in primitive camps near the factory, with inadequate food, shelter, and medical care. They worked long, grueling hours on the production lines, often subjected to cruel treatment and abuse from their overseers. Their work was physically demanding and dangerous, and they were given little to no protection. Many suffered from malnutrition, disease, and exhaustion. The very factory that was meant to be a symbol of national prosperity was, for these individuals, a place of enslavement, despair, and unimaginable hardship. Their forced contribution was critical to the factory's output. By 1944, forced laborers made up approximately two-thirds of the entire workforce at the Volkswagen plant. This included thousands of people from Poland, the Soviet Union, France, and other nations, as well as a significant number of Jewish prisoners. The use of this captive workforce is a dark stain on the company's history. It is a stark reminder of how industrial power can be co-opted and used for immoral purposes during times of conflict. The production of military vehicles and weapons was achieved through the immense suffering of thousands of human beings who had been stripped of their freedom and dignity. Reflecting on this period is essential to understanding Volkswagen's complete history. The company that emerged from the ashes of World War II was not the same one that was founded on a peaceful promise. It was a company that had been fundamentally shaped by war, complicit in the use of forced labor, and its factory was a site of both industrial innovation and human suffering. Acknowledging this difficult past has been a long and necessary journey for the company. The transition from a people's car project to a war machine powered by forced labor remains one of the most tumultuous and challenging chapters in the history of any automaker.